The winter wind moaned through the pine valley of Cold Creek like a wounded wolf. Snow fell heavy that morning, covering the old fences and cattle trails, muffling every sound but the crunch of boots and the distant neigh of horses. Out on the ridge, a tall, broad-shouldered rancher named Harlan Voss rode slow through the storm, his coat lined with wolf fur, his jaw clenched tighter than the frozen earth beneath him. He was a man who built walls, thick ones, around his heart. Ever since life had stolen his family, his trust, and the last shred of his faith in people, down the slope near the creek stood a small cabin that once belonged to a soldier who never came back from war. Now it belonged to Evelyn Hayes, the young widow who came to town 6 months ago, alone, wearing black, and holding a child who never lived long enough to take his first steps. No one knew much about her. Folks whispered that she was cursed, that her husband's death followed her like a ghost, that she spoke to no one except the wind. Harlan didn't believe in curses. He believed in work, in sweat, in mending fences and breaking horses. But every time he saw her walking along the frozen trail to fetch water, her veil whipping in the snow, something burned in his chest he couldn't name. He told himself she was trouble, the kind that sneaks into a man's thoughts when he's tired and lonely. So when Evelyn came to his ranch one morning, shy, trembling, asking for work, he didn't even look her in the eye. "Ain't got no place for a lady here," he said coldly, adjusting his gloves. "This is a man's job, and I don't hire widows." Her lips parted, her voice soft but steady. "I'm not asking for pity, Mr. Voss. Just a chance to earn my keep." He turned his back on her. "You ain't worth marrying, and you sure ain't worth hiring." Those words sliced through the cold sharper than the wind. She didn't speak again, just nodded, gathered her shawl, and walked away, leaving a trail of tears that vanished into the snow. Days turned to weeks. The blizzard hit harder that season, killing cattle and freezing streams. Harlan worked like a machine, refusing to admit he'd been wrong, though every time he saw smoke rising from her lonely cabin, he wondered how she survived. One night, after a brutal day herding what few cows he had left, Harlan heard something in the wind that made him stop mid-step. The faint, desperate sound of crying. It wasn't the wind. It came from the ridge below his porch, soft, broken, and full of pain. He followed the sound through the dark, lantern trembling in his big hand, until he reached Evelyn's cabin. The door was cracked open, snow blowing in. Inside, she sat by the cold fireplace, her face pale, her hands wrapped around a small, still bundle of cloth. Her child's last toy lay on the floor. Harlan froze. The woman he'd called worthless now looked like something sacred had been ripped from her, and guilt hit him like a hammer to the chest. He knelt beside her. "Evelyn," he whispered. Her tear-streaked eyes lifted to his. "I tried to be strong," she said faintly, "but I can't even keep warm anymore." Harlan took off his coat and wrapped it around her shoulders. For the first time in years, the giant rancher felt something break inside him. The hardness, the pride, the cold. "You ain't alone anymore," he muttered, his deep voice trembling. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, two lost souls sat close by the dim light of a dying fire, one guilty, one broken, and the night stretched on, heavy with the sound of forgiveness beginning to breathe. When dawn came, the snow had stopped. The world outside Evelyn's cabin looked clean again, untouched, quiet, waiting for something new to begin. Harlan had kept the fire alive through the night, his coat still around her shoulders. He watched her sleep, her face soft now, no longer twisted with sorrow. For the first time in his life, he wanted to protect someone not because he had to, but because he needed to. In the days that followed, he visited her often, fixing the fence near her yard, bringing food, splitting wood. The townsfolk noticed. "That widow's got the giant wrapped around her finger," they whispered. Harlan didn't care. He wasn't doing it out of guilt anymore. He was doing it because when she smiled, something inside him thawed that he thought had died with his family years ago. Evelyn began to heal too. She laughed again, a sound so light that even the horses lifted their heads when they heard it. She baked bread for the ranch hands, tended to a small garden, and though she still wore black, she no longer looked buried by it. One evening, spring returned to Cold Creek. The snow melted, and the air smelled of pine and earth. Evelyn stood on the porch, watching Harlan fix the corral gate. "Mr. Voss," she called softly. He turned, wiping sweat from his brow. "Why are you helping me so much?" He hesitated. The man who once said she wasn't worth marrying could barely speak now. "Because," he said quietly, "I was wrong. I thought strength was about not needing anyone. But you showed me it's about having someone to stand for." She looked at him for a long time, eyes glistening. "And what if I still don't feel worth marrying?" He stepped closer, towering but gentle now, his shadow covering her from the sun. "Then I'll spend the rest of my life proving you are." The silence between them was deep and beautiful. The wind carried the scent of wildflowers and promise. Harlan reached out, took her trembling hand, and for the first time she didn't pull away. Years later, the giant rancher and the widow were known not for their pain, but for how they rebuilt Cold Creek together. Folks said the snow melted early that year, as if even the mountains had bowed to love's quiet power.